Welcome to the Scottsdale Vibes Podcast. I'm Alicia Haygood. We all know we have some amazing people that live here in Scottsdale. We have people like me who are famous, obviously, and you see me all around town. We have our everyday people that are here to support our community. We have some famous faces that like to come in town and call it home as well, which is where I'm excited to introduce you to the June cover story of Scottsdale City Lifestyle, Colin Egglesfield. Colin, you may recognize from the screens, the TV screens, your big screen, and more. So we're going to get into that. But he's really here to motivate us to be our best version of ourselves. And that's something that he is passionate about. So we're going to talk about his passion and his purpose and what his life has led him to today. So when we come back, we're going to have Colin Egglesfield at the table with me. When it comes to protecting you, your family, and all your assets, you need to have someone that you can trust. And that's Jeremy Mueller of State Farm Insurance. Jeremy Mueller has lived in Scottsdale his whole life. How can anyone else know your needs more than someone who's been here and seen it all? Jeremy and his team are always ranked in the top % at State Farm. He cares, he's knowledgeable, and most importantly, he's always available. Don't believe me? Give him a call at 480-515-5223 or find him at jeremymueller.com. You may know this handsome face from All My Children, the reboot of Melrose Place, which also I'm old enough to know the original Melrose Place for all you newbies out there. Also opposite Kate Hudson in Something Borrowed, The Client List, and many, many more of his screen acting roles. Now he's using his voice in an unscripted way. Colin Egglesfield is a waiter in Iowa when a radio commercial for a model search changed his life. The model turned actor is now using his voice as an author, public speaker, cancer survivor, advocate, and more. 5 years ago, he released Agile Artist, Life Lessons from Hollywood and Beyond. And with his follow-up, Agile Artist, 90-Day Planner, coming out. We're about to do the book signing this week. And we are so excited to have Scottsdale resident Colin Egglesfield, who knows the power of voice and wants to make sure his voice is making a difference for others. So thank you so much for being here.
I'm absolutely,
guys, I already freaked him out because when he came in the studio, I just came up and gave him a big hug. He's like, hi. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm Alicia. I'm going to do your podcast episode today.
It was such an energetic and lovely hug. I was like, wow, what a great way to be welcomed.
Oh, great. Anytime. Let's talk about you. We all do this, right? We are kids. We have this plan. Like I want to do something and you want to be
astronaut or
right. I was going to be a teacher or
yeah.
something like that. Never went to school, never wanted to be a teacher, by the way. You were a pre-med student, though. By the way, that's another career I never wanted to be.
And this is one of the things where I talk about in my book, which is sometimes you kind of get shuttled into a direction where you're not exactly sure if it's what you want to be doing. And growing up in the Midwest, just not really knowing what was out there in the world, I always kind of had this feeling that there was something else out there that maybe I didn't know about. My dad was a doctor. He was a gynecologist, obstetrician, not something that I would want to do. I got to go see him deliver a baby one time, and I was like, yep, that's not for me.
Okay, listen, I've had 2 babies, and I don't know how it's done because I don't want to know that side.
Yeah. But I like the idea of helping people. I loved that my dad was able to, whenever I would meet any of my dad's patients, they were like, your dad is such a great guy. He's so kind, such a great doctor. And the thing that they always talked about, which I think made him stand apart from other doctors, was that they said, your dad is always, he's a great listener. Oh. I always feel like when I go to see your dad that he genuinely cares about me, because I feel like nowadays with healthcare, you've got 15 minutes to go into see your doctor and it's in and out. And my dad was, as he got later on in his career, that's the thing that he was frustrated about healthcare the most. But ultimately, what I liked about what he did was being able to be there for people when they need you, in distress situations or whatever it is. So that was the part about being a doctor that I really liked. But I also had this adventurous spirit. My mom is from Ireland. So we went to Ireland a few times while I was growing up. So the idea of like traveling and seeing the world was always very exciting to me. And so I was thinking about maybe doing Doctors Without Borders and going and practicing medicine in different countries. When I was going to college, it was, okay, you're going to go now to 4 years of medical school, then 4 years of residency or whatever it is. And then you're going to, it was kind of like you get a job and you get married and the white picket fence and the family and that sort of thing. And, for my brother and my sister, that seemed like they were totally okay with that. And a lot of people that I was going to school with seemed okay with that. For some reason, I just was like, I think there's something more.
You had that
there.
itch.
I had that itch. So I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of these things where if you just keep your mind open and you're just open to new opportunities, that's when I heard that radio announcement, come to the Model Search America. You can travel the world. I was like, as soon as I heard travel the world, and maybe work with some, beautiful women and
just a plus, no big deal.
So I went to this thing. It was kind of like American Idol. These two ladies were sitting behind the desk, and they were like, "Come to our model convention." Before you know it, I graduated and ended up in Milan, Italy, doing runway shows for Giorgio Armani and Versace, and having dinners with Donatella Versace and Elton John and the Spice Girls. And I was just like, "This is nuts and amazing at the same time." And
I bet that wasn't on your radar when you were like, "There's something else,"
But, and I was like, well, this is kind of cool. This will probably last a year or two, and then I'll go to medical school. And then just for whatever reason, I think the stars aligned where I worked with this photographer, and my picture ended up on the cover of L'Homme Vogue magazine, and these agents started calling from New York City. So I went to New York, and I just, I was 24 years old, and I was just like, why not?
That's the perfect time to be why not in life.
Yeah.
Literally. Well, you ended up in New York. Mm-hmm. You were in school there, acting school, to learn a trade and get on that. 9/11 struck. Yep. You were right across the street. You found yourself homeless because that whole city, it changed all of our lives forever. I mean, that day really did. Yeah. For people that were there and witnessing firsthand, that's another level. But that's how, from there, you were like, you had to leave. So you ended up in Hollywood from there.
Yeah, that's actually how I start out my book is that day, 9/11, when, I'd been studying acting for 2 years, and that was even in and of itself kind of sort of in a roundabout accident, because growing up, acting, theater was not something that I felt comfortable doing. Yeah. I'm more of an introvert, but my sister was always wanting to go to plays and auditions. Yeah. So my mom would drive us, and I would tag along with my sister. So I got a little bit exposed to it there. But the idea of getting up in front of people was always nerve-wracking. I would always get nervous, public speaking. And even now, to this day, I still get, the nerves and the butterflies. But what has been great about this whole acting journey is that when I was modeling, they started sending me on TV commercials, which required no acting whatsoever. It was like, here, get in the car and drive. We're going to film you driving a car.
Look pretty.
Or, get in front of the mirror and shave in front of the mirror. No acting required. So I started booking some of these commercials. And my commercial agent said, have you ever thought about doing TV or film? You keep booking these commercials. And I was like, the idea of it just was kind of scary, but also kind of exciting. So she said, why don't you take an acting class? There's a ton of acting classes here in New York City. What better place to do this? So again, why not? And when these opportunities and these doors start to open up, I think a lot of the times we may be afraid to step through that door. But the best thing you can do is just explore and see. If it's not a yes, then at least you know. But I decided to step through that door and jumped into this acting class, and I'm telling you, it was the first time in my life where I felt like the stars were just kind of like coalescing, and it was like, whoa, wait a minute, this is a profession. You can actually sit here and have a conversation with people, and I was not always the best at articulating what I wanted to say, but guess what? The words were right there on the page. And so I was like, wait, this is what I've been wanting to say my whole life. I just didn't know how to say it. And Shakespeare is helping me say this. And
that's huge.
There was another human being standing across from us. I think most of the time we don't have practice in genuinely and authentically connecting with another human being.
Especially nowadays with social media and everything.
And because everything moves so quickly, and if you don't get your words out fast enough, people are going to talk over you. And in acting class, it was a place where you just had to slow down and learn how to connect and communicate with someone, not just with your words, but with how you show up energetically in a space. And so we started talking about how, like, the warm-up exercises and getting out of your head. And what I realized, the reason why we get nervous when we get up in front of people to speak most of the time, or when we get in front of the camera, is because we're so in our head about being self-aware about what other people think of us.
Oh, yeah.
And what acting class does is the first thing you do when you get into an acting class is you get up in front of they take you up in front of onto the stage as the group, and you start doing warm-up exercises, and you're like blah, blah, blah,
You all look like fools together.
You all look like fools together. And, you're shaking it out and you're getting into your body. They make you do these exercises like pull a piece of paper out of a hat and it has an animal on it. You have to act that animal out in front of 30 complete strangers. The first day of one of my acting classes, my acting teacher made me sing a song but bark like a dog. And a lot of this stuff is designed to get you out of your comfort zone.
Vulnerability.
To get you in a place of realizing that there is strength and courage in vulnerability. And that as soon as I finished doing this, barking like a song or barking like a dog, I first had to sing the song. It was "Fly Me to the Moon, Let Me Play Amongst the Stars." And then he said, "Okay, great. Now bark that song like a dog." And I was like, "Are you fucking crazy?" And so I did it, and I'm sitting there, sweating and just like in front of 25 complete strangers. And then he said afterwards, he said, "Great. Now you've made a complete ass of yourself in front of all these people. Now you can do anything."
It's true.
And it was so true where I think we go out there into life and we try to maintain this image of, or this idea of what we think we should be or what we think the world expects of us. And it keeps us locked into these constrained bubbles of like having to feel like we have to wear this certain kind of clothes or drive a certain kind of car or live in a certain type of neighborhood. And once you start to let go of the attachment to some of these outside superficial types of way in which we think we are going to be accepted, you can connect with someone on an authentic, deeper level. And I'm telling you, it's the most freeing and most fun space to be in. And that's why every Monday and Tuesday night for 2.5 years, I just loved going to this acting class because it was just a way to just authentically connect and practice just being a better communicator and getting up in front of audiences and telling stories. And then circle back to 9/11 that morning when I woke up on that day, seeing the flames coming out of the buildings and all the first responders running into those towers. I grabbed my video camera, started videotaping everything, and then it was just a horrendous experience because I started seeing people hanging out of the top of the towers, and then I started seeing people jumping out of the buildings, and at a certain point, the second plane hit. And that's when I knew something was not right. So I ran downstairs and there was a group of us who were standing outside of my apartment building looking up, and these towers were so big and massive. There's no way you could comprehend that these things were ever going to fall down. But after watching people jumping out of the towers, I saw 2 people holding hands. It was just horrendous. So at a certain point, I was like, I can't watch this anymore. Started to walk up the street and got a few blocks up the street, went into a deli to grab some water, and all of a sudden the ground started shaking. The lights went out. I ran outside. It sounded like this horrendous earthquake of an avalanche, and people were screaming, and there was the dust cloud was coming at us, and so we started running down the street and got clear of all of that, and then turned around when I got up to Houston Street and saw the second tower fall down right in front of my face. Jeez. And at that point, I was like, I didn't realize it, but I went into shock, and I felt like I was all right. And for the next 3-4 weeks, I was in New York. Went back to my apartment a few times, and when I first walked in there, a National Guard soldier walked me up there, and there was a deadbolt, and my door frame was bent because he said the FBI had broken down my door to look for the black boxes from the airplanes.
Oh, geez.
Because my windows got blown in, and so when he opened up the door, it looked like a bomb had blown up inside of my apartment. Debris and metal beams and
imagine if you were in your apartment at that point.
I don't know what would have happened if I would have stayed there, but it wouldn't have been good. And so I had 10 minutes to put whatever I could put into a suitcase and get out of there. And so I went and stayed with a friend for a week, and then I checked into a hotel. And that's when I really started to do some soul searching. I was 27 years old, and I was like, what am I going to do? I can't live back there anymore. I had to move out. And the only thing that I really had was this connection and this dream of telling stories and maybe being a professional actor. The idea of it, though, of going out to Hollywood and actually making this a real career was so far away and just kind of incomprehensible that, when you go to the movie theater and you see like Tom Cruise, flying Mach 5 with his hair on fire and Top Gun, and Brad Pitt and Fight Club and I started to see like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, you know, with their movies, you know, there's a part of us where I think sometimes we feel like, who am I to think that I could do that? Or we see people doing things that maybe we feel like, you know, that's cool, but I could never do that.
Yeah. I like to think I'm going to be John Wick one day, but I'm not. That's
fine. You never know. Why not?
But I feel you. But that goes back, you know, Colin, to what you just said. You learned that from your acting class, your vulnerability to put yourself out there, that give you the confidence, that connection, you know, and if you don't find that internally, no one can give that to you, right? We can help that pull out from each other, but we have to rely on ourselves for that, you know. When I started podcasting, it was kind of the same thing. I used to be a producer for talent. I would tell them what to do. I never wanted to be on the mic. I never wanted to be on camera, ever, ever, ever.
How come?
I didn't have the confidence. It really boils down to I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be critiqued. I didn't want to be known as anything. I wanted to keep my life private and all these things. But my mom did the same thing. She was like, you should get into theater growing up. You know, you're so animated, you're so fun. But when people come in front of you that you don't know, you clam up and you become an introvert. And I was like, I don't have the self-confidence to go do that. Now, I was much later than you. I was in my late 30s before I was like, you know what? The only thing I'm losing out on is myself and my life by not trying. So when you shift your mind and when you go back and you say, when these opportunities start coming, for me, when I start stressing out or having a lot of anxiety about a decision, I know it's the right decision because I wouldn't be feeling this way if it wasn't the path for me to take.
And if you didn't care.
Right. And if I didn't care. So when my anxiety starts shooting up because of a big life change or move or a new career path, you know, the past couple of years I've had, I know it's the right decision for me because I'm taking it seriously and I want it that bad that I am reacting to everything. And so but it takes time to realize that. Whereas before, most people just push it to the side. Not for me. I'm freaking out. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to. And it's like, no, that's when you need to do it. Yep. This is when the universe and your soul is telling you, no, this is the direction you're supposed to be taking, kind of thing.
Yep.
I love that. So you made it out to Hollywood.
Decided to make the move, and the impetus that made me decide to do that really was just thinking about, at that moment, I felt like I had a second chance at life. And I thought about, you know, seeing those people trapped up in the towers and knowing that if I was one of those people stuck up there and God or the universe or whatever, someone came to me and said, all right, we're going to give you a second chance at this life. What are you going to do with it? I knew that, like, if anyone were to give any of those people a second chance at life, I guarantee you wouldn't second guess saying, I love you to the person that you love, going up and, you know, doing the thing that you've always wanted to do, to write the book, to do the course, to start the business, to tell your kids that you love them more often. Because a lot of the times we have these regrets in life where I wish I would have done this or I wish I would have done that. And I just, in that moment, I realized, if I don't go out to Hollywood right now, I will regret this for the rest of my life. And I was like, I just got to do it. Yeah. I don't know how it's going to turn out. And I think what stops a lot of people is they think that they need to figure it all out before they take that first step. Oh,
I mean, I was one of those people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily the how. It's as long as you have an idea of where you want to be. And where I knew I wanted to be was I want to start at least knowing what it takes to get onto TV and to do film. I'd done 2 guest star roles, one as a male escort on Law & Order SVU, and another where I jumped into bed with Jenny Garth from 90210 with a glass of wine in my underwear. So not the best resume for going out to Hollywood. But
you're such a whore, Colin.
I know. It's like crazy. But what I had was the curiosity. I think it's important to have curiosity. I think it's also important to be humble enough to know what you don't know. And I just basically went out to Hollywood, and there was an acting teacher who I had heard about, and I read her book when I was in New York City. And the first thing I did was, when I got out to Hollywood, I looked her up and I started taking her acting class. And once you start to get into being mentored by a coach or someone who's been there, who is actually, she was Brad Pitt's acting coach and Kyle Chandler and Heather Locklear from Melrose Place, who I ended up working with later on. You start to feel that this could actually be real. And you just, you know, a lot of the times I think we feel like we got to figure this out on our own. And if we just seek out the counsel of people who have been there, who have, who know how to make it happen, and just pour your heart, your soul into that arena, you don't know what's going to come out of it, but at least you'll know at least what I know that you'll find out is that even if your original plan doesn't turn out the way you want it to be, whether is becoming a professional actor, you may end up that directing is your forte, or that editing, or that maybe you end up realizing, you know what, I really like doing wardrobe, costuming. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you'll never know any of that unless you at least get out there and seek it and get into the arena.
Well, you got into the arena, you found success in there, but one thing I really liked that I read about you, Colin, is you're like, no one talks about the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of auditions I went on to get that 1% to 2% role opportunities. And this goes with everything in life. When I read that, I was like, this is how everything goes in life for any opportunity that you take and do, whether it's a new job opportunity, a new house, a move, whatever it is. It's like it takes so many trial and errors. And sometimes we're so focused on failing and fear of failing that we are never getting to our successful rate. And I think that was really powerful when I read that about you, because that's something I've been craving lately is like, I see where this is going, right? I see how big the podcast can go. I see how big Scottsdale City Lifestyle Magazine is going to be. Everything takes time. You didn't go out to Hollywood and get your first audition and now you're on the big screen, kind of, unless you did, then don't answer that. But like, it takes time, it takes patience, and it takes dedication. You have now taken all of those roles and put it towards a passion for you. And I think you're finding your voice and using it in such a different way. And I want to kind of shift to that a little bit, is because you are helping others at this point find their voice, find their courage, and bring that out in different ways. When did that kind of shift for you? I don't know if it was kind of when you're a 2-time cancer survivor. You've talked about that. I don't know if that kind of shifted you, like, holy hell, this has scared me at a young age. I have so much more to give now because of this. Where's my new purpose and passion?
You bring up a lot there. And if I could just go back to the whole number of auditions and the number of looking at it as fail more than you actually succeed in life. But the way that, I look at it, and having written my book, I did the calculations. I've gone on over 2,000 auditions in my 20-year acting career. And if you look on IMDb, I only have like 50 credits to my name, which equates to about a 1% to 2% success rate. So life is all about perspective, and it is the choice. We all have choices in life, and I look at it as, and one of my coaches and mentors, and I've had quite a few, is that if you can look at life from one of two ways. You can look at it as all the reasons why it's not going to work out, or you can look at the reason and focus on the opportunity and the reasons how it could work out and what could happen if it does work out. And so I just kept focusing on not the result of the 2% and looking at it, because you can look at it, I fail 98% of the time.
That's
right?
true, but
But if you understand the game that you're playing, and knowing that if in the game of professional baseball players fail 70% of the time, and they will make it to the Hall of Fame. So you only have to be successful 3 out of 10 times to hit 300 and be an all-star baseball player. That's the game of baseball. In the game of business, you may have a 30% close rate as a salesperson. And that's typically pretty good. If you're in the 40s, you're great. If you're 50s, you're a rock star. But knowing the game of sales, 30%, which means you fail 70% of the time, really, it's all about just showing up and continuing to practice on getting better so that you are inching that, the
dial to the
dial, whether it's 1%, 2%, Atomic Habits, where it's just increasing that 1% a little bit, and then that will eventually add up. But the most important thing about all of this is, why are you doing something? And getting connected to your why. And for me, doing acting wasn't because I wanted to necessarily be the biggest movie star and win Academy Awards. Look, that would be great. But I do it because I love storytelling. I love connecting with human beings on an intimate level. I love taking words that are on the page and pouring my heart and soul into them. So whether I'm doing that and getting paid to do it on a set, or if I'm doing that in acting class, or if I'm just doing it on the street when I'm like role playing with my friends, I've realized and discovered that I just love to storytell. And wherever I can do that, however I can do that, whether that's even in this podcast right now, this is my why. My why is connected to my sole purpose of making a difference in the world. And so by sharing these words, I've learned a lot from different acting teachers and acting coaches and my experiences of failing 98% of the time. But in that process of doing this, sharing any sort of like wisdom or insight that might help someone, inspire them to realize that, you know what, you don't have to have it all figured out. I wasn't the best actor when I went out to Hollywood, but what I had was this energy and this excitement and this passion for being alive, because I realized I had this second chance at life. And casting directors and directors even said, when I walked into the room, they said there was something that was just different about you. Hilary Swank even said this when they were casting for Something Borrowed. They had gone through 400 actors till they finally found, they go to the A-list offers and they just couldn't find their guy. And they narrowed it down to like 5 guys, and they took the 5 final guys, and Hilary Swank was one of the producers on Something Borrowed. And the producer, Molly Smith, brought the tapes to Hilary's house. And when I was having lunch with Hilary on set of Something Borrowed in New York City, she told me, she said, we started to watch your tapes, and she said, as soon as you came on the screen, there was something different about you. You just seemed to come alive, and there was something about you where you connected with Ginny in these auditions. And I said, well, first of all, I was terrified in the auditions. And the director during one of the auditions, because with acting, you got to say the words that are on the page. I was having trouble with one of the last scenes, and he said, Colin, just say this scene, how you would say these words to the woman that you were in love with in real life. Just make it your own. Make it your, and this is the thing where people are afraid to bring their unique themselves to whatever it is that they do. And in acting, you have to. Otherwise, you're going to be just one of 400 or 300 or 1,000 other people out there. What is unique about you? And you've got to give yourself permission and lend yourself the kindness to allow your unique talents and personality through to shine. And that's what Hilary Swank saw. And that's what I encourage people to do now is, and help shine a light on what is unique about you and each individual person that I coach, because I do some communications consulting, and a lot of it has to do with connecting you with your sole purpose. Why are you here? The why of why you do something is so important. And like you were saying earlier, your why is you realize you love to storytell. Yeah. And sometimes we need to take a break in life, because I took my break from Hollywood 5 years ago. When I left, I just was like, I'm burnt out. Yeah. I'm tired of going to these auditions, hoping and praying that someone is going to book me for their job. I realized when we get to certain places in our life, we've got to just check in with ourselves, as we were talking about earlier. The only way we can find that confidence and that ability to move forward in life is if we really do some internal work and check in, whether that's meditation or going on a retreat or going on vacation and just removing yourself from the environment to just take some time and allow yourself to listen to what your inner soul is telling you, what the universe is trying to tell you, what God is trying to communicate to you.
I think we're so afraid to do that sometimes, right? We're afraid of the answers. You know, I always tell people, especially the past few years, honestly, COVID helped me start this journey for myself of checking in with myself, because I had nothing else to do, right? Except be with yourself. But I tell everyone, it was then that I started really asking myself, checking in on myself. I stopped ignoring my feelings and my symptoms and life. And it's like, wait, what do I want? Where am I going? Because you do just get on the hamster wheel, right? And every day is the same, and you're doing the same thing, and you're like, I don't feel fulfilled anymore. Right. But we're not stopping to ask ourselves the why that you keep referencing and stuff.
And the crazy thing is that hamster wheel, a lot of the times I've realized is that, and this is what I talk about in my coaching, is that much like actors who are miscast in a movie, they may be a great actor. And I use this example. Tom Cruise is one of my favorite actors, but I think he was miscast in Interview with a Vampire. Yeah. And even Anne Rice, who wrote the books, did not want Tom Cruise to play in this movie, where when we see an actor miscast in a movie, it just doesn't resonate, and it doesn't fit, and it doesn't work maybe as well as it could have been. And similarly, I say a lot of the times we end up being miscast in the role of our own life.
Oh, I love that.
Where we find ourselves trying to play a role that maybe was set up by society or our parents or religion or school. And at a certain point, you got to just check in and be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not easy. And that's why for me, when I, started to be honest with myself and giving up medical school and, hey, mom, dad, I'm going to become an actor. I'm going out to Hollywood. Be like, oh shit, what are they going to say?
Every parent's like, oh man.
But thankfully, my parents were incredibly supportive. And, I think one of the best things we can do is, and I'm not a parent yet, but I think what I was grateful for my parents said about what they said to me was, you know what, honey, go out there, give it a shot.
Right.
If it doesn't work, you can always come back and go back to medical school. But I think the most important thing we can do, not only as parents, but as friends, is create this space for us to be seen and heard and accepted for who we are without trying to fix it.
Yeah.
Without trying to fix each other.
I love that.
And there's this amazing woman named Nicole Myden who I know.
She's the best.
She's the best. And she's a publicist here in Scottsdale. And I think she's a gift from heaven and an angel from God, because she is one of these people that when you are on your right path, these people show up in your life to remind you of who you are. And she's someone who's been incredibly supportive in this journey. And the reason why you and I are talking is because of her.
Listen, we've recorded her podcast episode, but y'all are going to have to wait to come out because she is fantastic. And I agree with you. When you open your mind, when you open your heart, when you open yourself up to accept anything and just be aware of what could happen, those things start coming in. And it's not even necessarily that they weren't there. They could have been knocking on your door.
They're there the whole time. You're just don't
not
see them.
opening
You're not
the
connecting
door.
You're
just not opening it because it goes back to what we've been saying this whole time. You're scared. The unknown and all that. Take a chance.
Yep.
You never know where it's going to end up.
But much like when I'm on set with movies, and even like right up until the day of shooting Something Borrowed, there is a screenwriter there that is helping rewrite and rework scenes and rewrite the story to make it as best as it possibly can be.
For you? Nice.
For Hollywood. And what I've realized is that we have that same ability to rewrite the story of our life.
I love
and that we don't have to stay stuck telling and playing the character that we are miscast in the role of the life that we're playing.
That.
So what I do is I teach this class. It's a 6-week course called Inspire. And what I do is I help people look at their life as if it were a screenplay. What is your act one? Who are the characters in your screenplay right now, in your story? Mm-hmm. Who are you as that character in act one? And then we look at where do you want your act three to be? And much like, movies and like Pretty Woman or my favorite movie, Gladiator and Dead Poets Society, you look at the different characters and what was their character arc? What was their journey? What did they learn? How was their act three different from their act one? And what did they learn, or who did they need to become as a new self-identity in order for the act three to actually happen? For Julia Roberts to get Richard Gere at the end of Pretty Woman, what was the journey that she had to go on? She and the theme of that movie is all about staying true to who you are.
Yeah.
And knowing that you don't have to change who you are internally in order to get what you truly want. And I think a lot of the times we feel like we've got to alter and change and shift and fit into something that is really not authentically who we are. And just by identifying and getting specific about what your act three looks like and writing it out. And this is what we do. And then we
journal and stuff. Yeah.
Go into act two. And then we identify what are the challenges and the obstacles that stand in the way for you to achieve your act three. But we look at these obstacles and challenges as opportunities. So I help people start to look at their life as from these different perspectives. And the best coaches I've ever had, they just help you boil down your life into two choices. You want to go this route or do you want to go this route? And they help you gain clarity about if you go and continue on this route, this is what you're going to continue to have. Or if you make the difficult change and decision right now to alter the course of your life, it's going to be difficult in the short term. But like my acting teacher said from day one of acting class, she said, you guys are all here to be actors, right? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, let's get serious. It's going to take you 10 years to be a working actor.
Right. And that's kind of what we were talking about, right?
And it's going to take you 20 years to be a good working actor.
Oh, goodness.
And if you're not willing to put in the time and the effort and the energy to do that, there's the door. And I think when you tell people, if you ask them what they want, like, well, I've always wanted to write a book. Well, once you do it, well, it's going to take so long.
Yeah.
It's going to, that might take 3 years. Well, 3 years is going to go by.
It really does. I mean, the day goes by fast. It goes by so fast.
Yeah.
You've kind of shifted. How do you think that all of this change in your perspective and how you treat life and your mentorship and, your internal healing, I guess you could say, how has that shifted for you in the acting realm?
So, like I said, 5-6 years ago, I got to a place in Hollywood where my goal and my dream was to become a professional actor working with A-list celebrities. And I did it. And I got there, and I was going to the Oscar parties and the Emmy parties, and I was like in the inn of Hollywood. And once I got there, I was like, this is amazing. This is great.
Yeah.
Why does this still feel like there's something missing? And I realized I was still playing other people's parts and roles and showing up and saying other people's words on the page. And I realized it was now time to tell my own stories. And I'd always been inspired by like Tony Robbins and personal and professional development, motivational experts. And the idea of doing what they did was like, that sounds amazing. I wish I could do that. And so I just started to, on my own personal journey of overcoming my fear of public speaking and auditioning, because I loved acting class and it was fun. I loved telling stories. But as soon as I started going into auditions where there's the casting director and the director and the producers, and there's like, oh, by the way, once you sign this contract, you're going to be making all this money. Now go in there and get the job. It's like all of this, like, oh crap, am I good enough? Am I going to sound I hope I don't screw this up. And so that the nerves and the anxiety of having the attachment to getting the job were getting in the way. So I started seeing psychologists and therapists and listening to Tony Robbins to figure out this whole nervousness thing and why does our personal and professional performance decrease under pressure? And how could I maintain and stay at my top level performance where I was doing that in my acting classes? How could I maintain that same level of performance like an Olympic athlete or the world-class athletes where they have coaches? And so I started seeking out these different mentors and started looking into different things like neuro-linguistic programming and reading all these books about, visualization and meditation, and just started incorporating a lot of this into my life. And I started to see the results, and I started to walk into these auditions. And the biggest piece of advice that I can give someone out there that helped me was when you're going out there into life, a lot of the times you can tell when people have the energy of they want something from you or if they're there to give something to you.
Yes.
And much like when you show up at a party, there's the people that bring like,
the life of the party.
These are my grandma's cookies that I spent all day cooking, and here's my margarita mix, and here's this. And when you show up at a party and you have something to give, you show up with this unattachment other than, let's have a good time. I'm going to come to this party and and we all know the people that show up to the party and like, where's the vodka? Where's the hot, they don't bring anything to it, and they expect to receive something out of it. And so life is all about the way in which you show up, the energy that you show up in life with. And in auditioning, my acting teacher said, most actors will walk into an audition with the attitude of, I want this role. I hope they like me. I hope they pick me. I hope I don't screw it up. And by shifting your mindset to when you walk into an audition or an interview or go on a date or show up in life in any situation with the perspective of, how can I share and support and help and make these people in this room feel that I'm there to support them on what they want? And so your job is the actor is not to go into the room and get the job. Your job is to go into the room and help the director, the producers, and the casting director find the best actor for this role. It may be you. Most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
But if you just show up with this attitude of non-attachment and ask the question, how can I be of service? there's a different energy to that. And casting directors will tell you that within the first 2 seconds of someone walking into the room, much like when you first meet someone, like when we first met out here, your energy was just loving and outward, and it was just like warm. And most of the time when we show up, we're always worried or we're on the defensive of what do people think of me?
Yeah.
So if you just shift your mindset to where I'm going to go, you just check in with yourself and say, all right, I'm going to go into this room. I'm going to sense and feel what it needs, and I'm going to fill that room with whatever energy or essence that is necessary in order for the people in that room to feel seen, heard, and loved. And the more I started showing up like this, it takes the pressure off of you.
Yeah.
And it makes people be like, man, like that so-and-so, people don't even know how to articulate this. They just will say like, you know what, I just...
You have a great energy about you. I just know I need to...
Has some great energy. Like, let's get her, like you keep getting invited back to the party when you keep bringing some great energy and great, whatever it is that is unique to you, to the party. And so that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've received that I share in my book. And it's really helped me overcome things like, my cancer journey where, we can make our illnesses all about ourselves. Whereas I made my chapter where I had testicular cancer and had to go, I was on All My Children, and I had signed a 3-year contract, and it was my first big acting job. And 6 months into my 3-year contract, I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. So I'd have surgery and radiation treatment. A year later, I had to have another surgery because it came back. But in all of this, what helped me through it was showing up to work, playing this role, and getting my mind off of woe is me and am I going to live? It was just, I poured myself into my work and my job. And what was great about it is once I didn't tell people at work that I had it at first because it was like guy stuff and I was nervous.
Fair. You had also just gotten your first big break.
And I didn't want to ruin that.
I would have done the same. Yeah.
But I realized after a while, I couldn't keep showing up and hiding this secret that I was going through radiation treatment. And once I shared that, everyone at work showed up, and I became better friends with everyone at work because they didn't see me as an actor, the new guy who was maybe trying to threaten them with taking over their role. They saw me as a human being who needed help. Yeah. And some of the guys at All My Children actually went to Sloan Kettering Hospital with me for my checkups and for my appointments. So the great thing about sharing what it is that you're dealing with is that you give the opportunity to other people to show up to be what they're best in the world at.
That's true.
And there's a difference between... And people are afraid to share or ask for help because they don't want to come across as being needy. Yeah. But there's a difference between being needy and needing help. Yeah. And you can ask for help in an empowered way where if you show up again with that needy energy of, oh, can you help me? Or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that. Or you can show up with the energy of, you know what, I'm really struggling right now. Could I ask you to come with me to my appointment so that I don't feel like I'm by myself or whatever. The way in which you present it, you can ask for something for whatever it is that you need in an empowered, from an empowered place instead of that needy energy. And that's what people, don't want to deal with, or they just...
There is a big difference, but it goes back, Colin, to what you were saying. You can feel that energy shift on how they're asking for things. And the needy make it me people compared to no, I need help right now for this specific thing. And those kind of people are the ones that they know they can call on you for anything that comes up to, because you are willing to give to yourself to them where they are needed as well, and so it's a give and take kind of thing.
It's self-care, it's honoring yourself. Yeah. And by doing that, you're actually teaching other people how to honor themselves and honor their self-care and their self-needs. And the worst
it's a domino effect.
Yeah. And the worst thing in the world is showing up trying to be a people pleaser and make everyone happy. Another piece of advice my acting teacher gave us was when you start acting and going out there and auditioning and being seen, she said, straight facts. 30% of the people that you perform in front of, who you audition in front of, they're going to like you. They're going to think, oh, there's something really cool. It was like, I like that person. They, whatever. She said 30% of the people that you audition in front of or are going to see your work, they're going to think you suck. You're horrible. You're the worst. Their cousin could have done a way better job than you. They're just not going to like you. And then she said the other 40% of the people out there don't care.
Well, that's the thing. But isn't that funny how we don't focus on the people that give us the positive feedback or that give us that want and desire and love. We focus on like, why didn't that person like me? Why didn't that person like what I did? And it's like, why do you care? Like, you don't want that in you, but you're feeding yourself that, and it's like, but wait, all these 3 people liked me and they keep asking me back and they know I'm reliable and they know who I am. So you have to get burned, I think, one too many times before you're like, I'm done with this. Like, it brings no value, no warmth, no positive impact on my life. And for me, it's like I'm finally at the point where it's like quality over quantity in every aspect of life, right? From the people you associate yourself with to what you do in your path, your purpose, your career, and all of that. It's like work up to that point, do those trials and errors, because when you get to that point of you really understand this kind of quality of product and this kind of quality of person and from inside out, your life becomes easier, your life becomes fulfilled, you'll sleep better, you will be healthier. And it's kind of funny how it just starts naturally happening again, like we've been saying this whole time, when you open your heart to allow it to come in, instead of quit shutting all the doors everywhere.
Yeah, and when you love what you do, you don't care what other people think.
Right, I don't, yeah.
So that's the biggest key. You just got to find what you love to do.
Yeah.
Because then you're in that zone and you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And Morgan Freeman, he has this great quote. He said, why would you take advice from someone, or why would you listen to someone's critique or judgment from someone who you wouldn't take advice from?
Yeah.
It's like, we got to be careful about who we are listening to when we hear this criticism and this judgment. And when people say, well, who are you to think you could write a book or start a course or do a business? Look at what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if you talk to any successful entrepreneur out there and you tell them you're going to write a book, you're going to start, they'll be like, go for it, do it.
Agreed.
Amazing.
I've never heard I agree with you. And it's the naysayers I've learned also, it's a lot of a jealousy. It's what it is.
Yep, because you end up, when you start stepping into your greatness, it actually is threatening to other people because it makes them realize that they're not maybe stepping into or honoring or owning what they're capable of doing. And it's way easier to just stay where you're at, doing nothing and watching Netflix and watching sports.
It absolutely is.
Than to get out there to fulfill what authentically, truly matters most to you in your life. And that's why sometimes it requires you being rigorous. And like a good coach, like, football coaches, baseball, I've had a lot of them. And they're not always like, how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
Are you ready to
That's not
get
a
out
good
of that
coach.
field? Like, no, come on. This is what we said. We're committed to winning the championship. What do you want? So whenever I'm coaching people, I just remind them, what do you want?
Yeah.
Not how are you feeling right now? And we'll get to that. But first, we got to start with, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want?
That's true.
What do you want? And then you got to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
You can't just like drag people to the end goal without really knowing where they're at, because not everyone travels at the same speed. Not everyone
same way,
hears
same pace. Yeah.
Communication. I mean, everyone is unique in who they are. And that's why I think it's important to really understand who people are and meet them where they're at. Because as soon as people feel seen and heard for where they are at, they know the answers. We all have the answers within ourselves. We just need someone to allow us to create that safe space for us to allow
That's just what it is,
to come up within ourselves.
I'm like speechless. I don't know where to go. Like, it's just because I resonate so much with it. And I think this is like the power of podcasting, the power of storytelling, the power of your voice, right? And using your voice to better those around you. And the very first thing you said, Colin, was just being able to listen. It's such a talent these days to be able to listen to someone. And it's kind of crazy how we can't. And we're so focused on what's next. You hone in on what's right now. Next is inevitable. It's going to happen.
It's like Stephen Covey said, do you listen to respond or listen to understand?
Yeah. There's a huge difference. And I always tell people, it's like, I'm listening. I'm just absorbing right now. Like, I'm absorbing it to respond in a way, or listening in that kind of sense. Yeah.
And so the one little takeaway, it's so easy and it's so powerful for anyone listening out there. The next time you're with your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend or your kids, when you ask them how they are doing or how their day was, and they start telling you something, resist the urge to try to fix it.
Yeah.
Resist the urge to try to give them advice. Resist the urge to just try to make it better. Mm-hmm. Just sit there and say, I got it.
And this is one of the biggest pieces of advice to go along with that I've heard is, when someone comes to you with the problem or an issue to talk it out, the first, do you want me to give advice or do you want me to listen? Because I can do whatever you need me to do in that sense, and it's like, well, listen.
That's great
advice. And so I love that. It's like, do you want me to just listen or do you want my advice? Because there could be some people just need to get off their chest, and are not in the mood to listen themselves. So you giving advice and never put yourself in their place. You're not experiencing the same thing. You may have a similar experience, but it's not the same as theirs. So saying, I can relate to that, you can't. You feel different things. Right. You experience different things. Be a good listener, and that's what that person needs. And if they want advice, ask them before you just start giving it out, because then it could just turn in that sense too.
It's like when people say that they've been diagnosed with cancer or whatever, I resist the urge to then say, I've had that too, and I had this, and I did this, and because that really doesn't make a difference. It's really just listening and hearing from where they are at, and then sharing some insight or some of the experiences I had where I relied on a lot of my acting training when I had to go to my radiation treatments and my blood tests and my CAT scans, where and this is another little trick, is that you just start to think about which superhero or character in your favorite movie that you identify with. And for me, it was Maximus and Gladiator.
I was going to say, who was it? Like, I had to know,
So I would stand out in front of Sloan Kettering Hospital every week. I had to go for my blood test, chest X, or every month. Blood tests, chest X-rays, every 3 months, CAT scans. And I would just stand out there and I would pretend I was about to walk into the Roman Colosseum. And I'd just be like,
I'm doing this.
Are you not entertained? And we have it within ourselves. And it really is just, what do you focus on in life?
Yes.
You can focus on the problems and the victim mentality, or you can choose to shift your mentality. And the reason I know this is because I've done it over 2,000 times, where I've had to choose the mentality, the characteristics, the mindset of the character that I'm going into play in this audition. And I started to realize, after doing this character breakdown, this is what I do in my coaching, the who, what, when, where, why, and the self-identity, getting clear on who that is for your character. I started to realize I knew the characters I was auditioning for better than I even knew myself. And I started to realize, wait, if I start doing some of this analysis of myself and start to realize, who are we really? Ultimately, at the end of the day, who we are. A lot of the times, again, it's not our conscious choosing who we are. It is basically someone telling us who we are based on where you were born. Or like, you're from Chicago, so you're a Bears fan.
Yeah.
You're
all the stereotypes.
You're Irish, so you get the look of the Irish, and you got this, and you got this. And it's like, wait a minute. And it's like the Aborigines, what they do is they don't even name their children until their children are old enough to name themselves. So it's like, instead of imprinting and telling someone who they are from a very early age, because that's what we do to our kids, it's important to create opportunities and ways for our kids to understand and connect with what they are best at, so that we're not just trying to tell them or fit them into, a circle, into a square.
Who we want them to be. That's just what it boils down to. I love that. All right, go check it out, guys. He has his second book coming out, because someone said he could, and he knew he could, that he did it. So his first book, Agile Artist, Life Lessons from Hollywood and Beyond. His follow-up, The 90-Day Planner of the Agile Artist. He has a book signing on Wednesday. Go get, by the time this airs, there might not be tickets left, but you can try. And go check him out. He has an amazing Facebook page. He does his own YouTube podcast as well. You're all over. And you're still acting, by the way.
I'm still acting.
I love that, because you are still doing everything. And I feel like when you take these breaks that you've been talking about, it's really just to regroup with yourself to be a better actor and get those roles that are more specific to what you're feeling right now. Yeah.
And 5-6 years ago, when I left Hollywood, I realized I need to just do a check-in with myself and start to elevate in life. And now, from all of the work that I've done over the past 5-6 years, writing the book and doing these podcasts and now doing public speaking, I've now started to attract producers and directors, and I produced my first film last year. I'm about to go help with this other project in Montana next week, where I'm going to be acting in it and coaching the lead actress in the film. I've got a couple of other projects that I'm working on with Mario Lopez and his team. And so just by getting out of my comfort zone
Yeah.
and starting to step into this arena of who I know myself to be. All this amazing stuff has come out of it. And with this 90-day planner, it's actually designed to help you with taking your idea or your goal or your dream and actually in 90 days, putting a framework and a plan in place to actually make it happen. So it's not just an idea, because a lot of the times we have this great idea, well, I want to start this business, or I want to do a podcast, or I want to write this book. And it's like, well, someday I'll do it. So
It's always,
this 90-day
Someday is
planner
today.
makes someday today.
I love that.
So come on Wednesday.
I will definitely be there. Thank you for just being open. Thank you for being with us and supporting the community and yourself and helping us grow to who we're supposed to be. I think that's important. We're just listening. Before we leave, though, I do have to ask you, what is your favorite Scottsdale vibe?
Ooh, so I've been coming to Scottsdale for like the past 20 years. My dad, my brother, and I would come down here every year for spring training. So I was, and still am, a White Sox fan. My dad and my brother were Cubs fans.
It's because you're a Midwesterner, right?
We're a Midwesterner, yeah. I grew up outside of Chicago. So we would come down here. We'd watch baseball. We'd play golf every year. So I've been coming down here for 20 years. So Scottsdale's always had a place in my heart. And since I've gotten down here, I've discovered I live next to Mastro's City Hall Steakhouse.
Delicious.
Best steak in the freaking world.
It's pretty good.
The House Brasserie.
Yeah.
Have you ever been there?
I have.
That's an amazing place.
To see
love
the
that
food
place.
scene, right?
Yes. The Ambassador Hotel is a cool place that I like to go and hang out. And I also like to go to the W occasionally for some nightlife.
I hear they have some great nightlife and pool parties.
Yeah, there's a few.
Listen, a funny story about the W. My husband's aunt and uncle came in town about a month or so ago, and they got a great deal at the W. And I was like, y'all are staying at the W in Old Town? They're like, yeah. And I was like, do you know about the W in Old Town? They're in their 70s, and they were like, no. And I was like, it's a huge party hotel.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really funny because they actually got a call 24 hours before check-in. They're like, just to let you know, we're a great party hotel. Hope you're ready to get down and mingle. And so they said it was a scene. All right.
Yeah. No, that's great. I hope
I love it.
there at 70 years old as well.
They had the best time.
And then Schmooze, of course.
Oh my gosh, I love Schmooze.
Is my place where I go and hang out and just read my scripts. And
I'm surprised I haven't seen it. That is a hidden secret garden, is it not?
Yeah.
And I love the chef there. He's been on the podcast as well. He's an amazing guy, super sweet, and just cares so much about nourishing you, and I say that to you because that's how you are as well. All right, go get his books. We'll have the links in the description of the episode, so you can go get them today. Get your 90-day planner. And don't forget, he will be at Buck and Ryder in North Phoenix, Scottsdale on Wednesday, May 29th for book signings. Again, you have I think there's 3 tickets left at the time of this recording. So good luck getting them, and go do it now if they're still available. In the meantime, stay tuned. We'll be right back with some calendar events. Thank you, Colin.
Thanks, Alicia.
Buying a home can be scary and sometimes frustrating, but all of that can go away with the right realtor. And that's where Sean Shackleton with the Shackleton Group is here for you. Sean has over 25 years experience in real estate. She's here to get you what you want and won't settle for less. She's experienced, knowledgeable, and understands this market, which these days is always changing. Take the stress out of your next home purchase by calling Sean at 480-734-7277. You can also find her at theshackletongroup.com. Thank you, Colin Egglesfield, for coming on, for teaching us, for your passion, for your purpose. I learned so much. And guys, I could have gone on and on and on to talk to him and really just listen to him. Because like he said, the art of listening really opens up your path to form a new friendship, to help others in a different way. So just be aware and try something new. Speaking of trying something new, there is still some fun going on here in Scottsdale. So don't forget, there is only a few tickets left. He is only allowing about 30 people to his book signing on Wednesday, May 29th. So if there's tickets still available, grab them now. You get to meet him, get a signed copy of his newest book, get a photo. Tickets are only $44 and they're happening at the Buck and Ryder in North Phoenix. I have the link to get your tickets on this episode, so go click it. For all the men and women out there, I'm a Southern girl. I like my whiskey. The Whiskey of the World Tour is happening on Saturday, June 1st from 6 to 9:30 at the Sanctuary Camelback. You can get VIP tickets where you get 45 minutes of early access. You can also get general admission tickets, but you get to taste whiskey whiskeys from around the world. It'd be a great early Father's Day present or a date night or a friend night out, just whatever you want to do. And it's a beautiful area. I love the sanctuary at Camelback. And it is officially starting at June this weekend, which only means one thing for the city of Scottsdale. Well, it's June Days in Old Town. So it's back and it starts this weekend. It's a month full of events happening in Old Town for all of our small businesses. So the restaurants will do tastings. You have private parties. You have different art walks. There are lots of different specials going on. It's really to help us keep these small businesses alive during their slower seasons. Because for residents like us that are here year round, we got to continue to support one another when the travelers and the snowbirds are not in town, which we love because they help us out as well. So go check out the calendar for dates, times, and location for each event. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast listening app. You leave us a review. Let me know what you want to hear more of, less of. This is what I'm here. This podcast is for you. So go check us out on all your podcast listening apps, as well as on all social media channels and YouTube for the video of this episode. Have a great week, Scottsdale. Keep vibing, and I'll see you around town.